silence. It's one of the most frustrating things to experience when you're dealing with a man you care about. One day he's there, engaging, responding, maybe even pursuing you, and then suddenly nothing. No texts, no calls, just radio silence. And the first thing that starts playing in your mind, what did I do wrong? See, when a man pulls away like that, the instinct is to immediately start analyzing. You scroll through old messages, looking for clues. You replay conversations, wondering if you said something that pushed him away. But what if I told you that his silence actually has very little to do with you and everything to do with him? Men and women process emotions differently. When a woman is feeling unsure, anxious, or upset, what does she do? She talks. She calls her best friend. She vents. She expresses. She seeks connection because connection is how she finds clarity. But men do the opposite. When something is weighing on their mind, whether it's stress from work, personal doubts, or even the intensity of their own feelings, many times their instinct is to retreat. They pull away to process, not because they've stopped caring, not because they've lost interest, but because isolation is how they find clarity. Now, I know what you're thinking. If he likes me, wouldn't he just say that? Wouldn't he want to keep that connection strong? And that's the tricky part. Because what a man feels and what a man does don't always align. He may genuinely enjoy your presence. He may even be developing strong feelings, but when those emotions start surfacing in a way that forces him to confront something deeper, his fears, his readiness, his own emotional limitations, that's when he might disappear, even if he doesn't want to. Think about it like this. A man is like a rubber band. When he starts to feel tension, whether it's the weight of expectations, the need for independence, or even the fear of getting too attached too soon, he stretches away. But here's where it gets interesting. If you resist that distance, if you try to chase him while he's pulling back, that band snaps. The more you push, the more he resists. But if you let go, if you lean back and allow him that space, 9 times out of 10, that same rubber band snaps right back to you. Because once he's had that distance to process, he realizes something, he misses you. He misses you. And this is where so many women get it wrong. They see a man pulling away, and instead of leaning into their own strength, their own confidence, they panic. They text, they call, they demand explanations. But the moment you start chasing a man who is pulling away, you've already lost the game. Because now the dynamic has shifted. Instead of him realizing he needs to step up and pursue you, he starts feeling like you're the one who needs reassurance. And if a man ever starts feeling like he's being pulled instead of drawn in, that's when attraction fades. So what should you do when a man goes silent? Simple, match his energy. If he pulls away, you pull back. If he goes quiet, you go even quieter. Not as a game, not as manipulation, but because you understand your worth. Because you know that a man who is truly interested in you will not risk losing you. See, there's a moment that happens when a man realizes you're not waiting around for him. When he looks at his phone and sees that you haven't been blowing it up with messages. When he wonders what you're doing, who you're with, why you're so unbothered. And that moment, that's powerful. Because that's when the shift happens. That's when he realizes that if he wants you, he has to step up. He has to pursue. And the best part, when a man comes back after silence, it's not just because he remembered you exist. It's because something clicked. He started feeling the absence of your presence. He started questioning why he was so comfortable losing a woman who added value to his life. And that's the difference. A man doesn't chase what he doesn't feel like he's losing. So when he does return, And trust me, he will. You need to ask yourself a question. Is he coming back because he truly values me, or is he just checking to see if I'm still available? Because a man who is truly ready for you won't just come back. He'll step up. He'll show consistency. He'll make an effort. And if he doesn't, then his silence wasn't a test. It was your answer. There's a moment that always catches you off guard. Just when you finally started moving on, just when you've accepted that maybe he's gone for good, your phone lights up. And there it is. His name, that text, that call, that random hey that comes out of nowhere. And your first thought, why now? After all that silence, after all that distance, what suddenly made him decide to reach out? Was it a change of heart? Regret? Did he finally realize what he had? Or is this just another one of those moments where he checks in to see if you're still available? Here's what you need to understand. When a man goes silent, it doesn't mean he's forgotten about you. In fact, in many cases, it's quite the opposite. See, men compartmentalize emotions differently. When they step away, they don't necessarily process things in real time the way you do. It might take days, weeks, even months before something clicks, before he feels that shift, before the silence actually hits him. At first, he might enjoy the space. He's focused on work, his own routine, his own life. But then, slowly, something starts to change. He reaches for his phone, and there's no message from you. He wonders what you're doing, and instead of an easy answer, there's mystery. And then it happens. He starts to feel your absence. See, people underestimate the power of silence. We think making noise gets attention, but real impact, that happens in the absence. Because now there's a gap where you used to be, a space that was once filled with your energy, your voice, your presence. And that space, it starts to feel uncomfortable. He thinks about texting you, but something holds him back. Would he even respond? Would he even care? And that hesitation, that's where the shift happens. That's where he realizes you're not just sitting there waiting for him. That's when the curiosity kicks in. And let me tell you something. Curiosity is one of the most powerful emotions when it comes to attraction, because when a man starts wondering about you, he starts feeling something else. The fear of loss. Now, loss is a tricky thing. A man might not have been ready for a relationship when you were fully available. He might have taken your presence for granted. But the second he feels like you've actually moved on, that's when he starts to panic. Because now it's not just about missing you. It's about realizing that someone else might be experiencing what he took for granted. And let me tell you, nothing speeds up a man's decision-making process faster than the thought of another man stepping into his place. But here's where most women go wrong. The second he reaches out, they drop everything. They take it as a sign that he's changed, that he's realized something profound, that the love story is back on track. And instead of holding their ground, they make it too easy for him to slide back in. But let me ask you, what did he do to earn that spot again? Because if a man disappears and then comes back only to find that he can pick up exactly where he left off without any effort, what lesson did he learn? This is why you have to pay attention not just to the why, but to the how. How is he coming back? Is he just testing the waters, sending a casual text to see if you'll respond? Or is he coming back with real intention, with effort, with a clear understanding that if he wants another chance, he has to work for it? A man who truly values you won't just reach out, he'll step up. He won't send vague messages at odd hours. He'll make plans. He won't be inconsistent. He'll be clear. Because when a man realizes he's about to lose something truly valuable, he won't risk it again. And if he's only checking in, If he's breadcrumbing, sending just enough to keep you hooked, but not enough to truly pursue you, then you already have your answer. Because a man who truly wants you won't play games. He won't leave you questioning. And if he does, then he's not the one. There's a moment every woman faces in dating. You meet a man, there's chemistry, there's excitement, and at first, everything flows effortlessly. He's calling, texting, making plans. You feel wanted, desired, pursued. Then, almost like clockwork, something shifts. The messages slow down. The calls become less frequent. Maybe he starts pulling back, creating just enough distance to make you wonder what's going on. And what do most women do in that moment? They panic, they overthink, they start chasing, even if they don't realize it. Not in some dramatic way, but in subtle, unconscious ways. Initiating more, over-explaining, trying to prove their worth, trying to get him back to how he was in the beginning. But here's the problem. The second you start chasing, you flip the dynamic. You go from being the prize to trying to win him. And the moment a man senses that shift, he stops valuing you the same way. See, men are wired to pursue. They are wired to be drawn to what feels just out of reach, to what requires effort, not because they like games, but because effort creates value. And when something comes too easily, when there's no sense of risk or challenge, it loses its spark. That's just human nature. Now, I'm not telling you to play hard to get. I'm telling you to be hard to get. There's a difference. Playing hard to get is pretending you're busy when you're not. It's forcing yourself not to text back even when you want to. That's a game. But being hard to get, that's about having a life so full, so complete, so fulfilling that a man has to work to earn a place in it. That's about knowing your worth so deeply that you don't need to chase anyone because the right man will step up on his own. This is why the most powerful thing you can do when a man pulls back is nothing. Not because you're trying to punish him, not because you're trying to manipulate him, but because your energy is too valuable to waste on someone who isn't showing up fully. Because instead of chasing, you're leaning back. Instead of seeking validation from him, you're rooted in your own confidence. And that energy, that's magnetic. Think about it. When a man starts pulling away and you do the same, what happens? He starts to feel the space. He starts to notice the absence of your energy. And instead of being certain that you'll always be there waiting, he starts wondering, where's she? Why isn't she reaching out? Is she losing interest? And that wonder, that curiosity, that's what pulls him back in. Not your words, not your efforts, but your absence. Because men don't fall for women they take for granted. They fall for women they feel they could lose. Now, here's where a lot of women struggle. They think, but what if he forgets about me? What if he moves on? And I'm going to tell you something that might sting. If a man can forget about you that easily, if he can just move on without any effort to win you back, then what exactly are you holding on to? Because a man who truly wants you will feel that absence. He will recognize your value. And if he doesn't, then he was never meant to be yours in the first place. The right man won't need to be chased. The right man won't let space turn into silence. And if he's not stepping up, you don't step down to meet him. You rise so high in your own confidence, your own worth, that he either reaches up to meet you or he stays behind where he belongs. So after all that silence, after all that space, he finally reaches out. Maybe it's a simple, hey, how have you been? Maybe it's something more nostalgic. I was just thinking about you. Maybe he even acts like nothing ever happened, like he didn't just vanish into thin air. And now you're standing at a crossroads. You have the response sitting right there in your hands. But the question is, how do you handle it? Most women make one of two mistakes. The first, they respond too quickly, too eagerly, almost like they've been waiting for this moment. They let relief take over, happy that he's back, and before they know it, they've slipped right back into the same dynamic, texting, calling, giving him the same energy as before without ever questioning if he's even earned that access again. And the second mistake, going to the opposite extreme, giving him attitude, responding with bitterness, trying to make him feel the silence he left behind. But here's the thing, neither one of those approaches works. Because the first one tells him he can disappear and come back whenever he pleases, and the second one, it tells him he still has power over your emotions. And a man who knows he can trigger your emotions, whether it's through excitement or frustration, knows he still has a hold on you. The most powerful response you can give, control. Not over him, but over yourself. When you respond, you do it from a place of calm, from a place of confidence, from a place that says, I am good with or without you. You don't rush. You don't drop everything. You don't suddenly rearrange your life just because he's resurfaced. Instead, you acknowledge, but you don't overextend. See, men can sense when a woman is in her power. They can tell when you're living your life, when you're fulfilled, when your happiness doesn't depend on their presence. And that's what pulls them in. That's what makes them realize that if they want a place in your life, they're going to have to work for it, because a man doesn't value what is simply given to him. He values what he earns. Now, this doesn't mean playing games. It doesn't mean waiting 3 days just to make him wonder. It means responding in a way that reflects your reality. If you're busy, you respond when you actually have time. If you're out with friends, you don't interrupt your night to text him back. If he asks to see you, you don't drop everything just to accommodate his last-minute plans. Because a woman who respects herself sets the standard. And if a man is truly interested, he will rise to meet it. And let's be honest, some men will reach out just to see if they still can, not because they're serious, not because they've had some deep revelation, but because they're testing the waters. And how you respond in those moments determines everything. If you're too available, too accommodating, too quick to fall back into old patterns, he knows he doesn't have to do much. But if you stay in your energy, if you respond with warmth but not neediness, with interest but not investment, he starts to realize something. He realizes that you are no longer the woman he thought he could just check in on, that you are no longer waiting, that if he wants you, really wants you, he's going to have to show up in a way he hasn't before. And that's where the shift happens. That's where he either steps up or steps out. But either way, you win. Because when you handle his return with confidence, with poise, with self-respect, you send a message. You let him know, without ever having to say it, that access to you is a privilege, not a guarantee. When a man comes back after silence, he's not just looking for a response, he's looking for a reaction. He wants to know where he stands with you. He wants to see if the door is still open, if he still has access, if he still has that pull over you. And this is the moment where most women get it wrong, because they think the fact that he's reaching out means everything is back on track. But a man coming back is not the victory. The real victory is in what he does after he comes back. Does he just check in, send a few texts, keep things surface level? Or does he step up? Does he make an effort? Because the truth is, reaching out is easy. Saying, I miss you is easy. But consistency, that's where real intent is revealed. Too many women hear from a man after a long silence, and they immediately slip into excitement. They take his return as proof that he's changed. that he's realized her value, that everything they wanted is finally happening, and they invest before he's even proven himself. They start texting every day again. They make themselves available for him. They fall right back into the rhythm they had before. But what they don't realize is, if he didn't have to work to get you back, what lesson did he learn? Men don't commit because a woman is available. They commit because a woman requires it. Not through ultimatums, not through pressure, but through the simple standard of knowing what she will and won't accept. If he disappeared before, what has changed? Has he come back with real effort? Has he apologized? Has he acknowledged the distance and corrected it? Because if all he's done is reappear without showing any real consistency, then what you have is not a man who has changed. It's a man who is testing to see if he still has control. The strongest thing you can do in this moment is watch. Not with desperation, not with expectation, but with awareness. You don't get excited because he's back. You observe what he does now that he is. You don't assume his words mean anything until his actions prove them true. You don't let a few sweet messages erase the reality of how he treated you before. A man respects what he has to work for. A man values what he knows he could lose. And when you show him that your world doesn't revolve around his return, that you're good, that you're whole, that your happiness was never dependent on him, that's when he realizes something. He realizes that if he truly wants you, he has to step up in a way he never has before. And if he doesn't, then you already have your answer. Because a man who truly wants to be in your life won't just come back, he'll stay. The real test isn't whether he comes back, it's what you do when he does. Because when a man returns after silence, he's not just seeing if you'll respond. He's seeing if you're still his. If he still has that hold over you. If he can slip back in without having to do the work. And this is where most women make the mistake. They think, if I just show him how much I care, if I remind him of what we had, he'll stay this time. But men don't stay because of what you give them. They stay because of what they feel they might lose. That's human nature. We don't truly value what's easily accessible. We value what requires effort, what challenges us, what we have to rise up to keep. So when he comes back, the most powerful thing you can do is not fall back into old patterns. Not rush to make things feel the way they used to. Not give him the comfort of knowing that no matter what he does, you'll always be there waiting. Because the moment he feels that certainty, the moment he feels like there's no risk of losing you, the chase is over. And if the chase is over, the effort stops. See, men are wired for challenge. Not games, not manipulation, but genuine challenge. And the strongest challenge a woman can present is self-respect. The ability to say, I care about you, but I care about myself more. The ability to let him return, but not on his terms, on yours. The ability to say, you left, and now you have to show me why you deserve to be back. A man who truly wants to be with you will have no problem proving himself. He won't just send a few texts. He'll follow through. He won't just say he misses you, he'll make time. He won't just check in when it's convenient, he'll be consistent. But a man who just wants to see if he still has access, he'll keep it casual. He'll send mixed signals. He'll say just enough to keep you hooked, but not enough to actually move things forward. And that's where you have to be strong. That's where you have to trust yourself enough to know that you don't settle for halfway. You don't settle for inconsistency. You don't settle for someone who only comes around when it suits them. Because if he truly values you, he won't risk losing you again. And if he's willing to risk it, then you already have your answer. Because a man who is meant for you won't just come back, he'll come correct. And anything less than that is not worth your time.